Hey everyone, Chris Carter here with the Locked On Steelers podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers are set to sign Aaron Rodgers today. He's flying into Pittsburgh. We're going to talk about all the implications, the short term, what it means for their offense, how they're going to need to change things, what it means for their wide receiver 2 plans, and the long-term plan, of course, as they try to find their franchise quarterback for the future. All here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Steelers fans, it finally happened. Aaron Rodgers, the breaking news coming out from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Jerry Dulac broke it, my colleague there, and that Aaron Rodgers is coming to the Steelers. He will sign. He's flying to Pittsburgh. He'll sign his contract today, Friday, and that'll be that. He will attend the mandatory minicamp next week, and that'll end that saga of the waiting period is there. And now, I gotta say, for once, this happened before I even recorded an episode. So happy birthday to me on that one. But we did our emergency episode. If you missed that, I gave my quick reaction. So I'll skip past the quick thoughts there that we had in that episode. But we've been saying we were expecting I expected this to happen at some point soon, at least for it to be a point where Aaron Rodgers did show up. I didn't think he'd make OTAs. I thought maybe minicamp, but definitely training camp. And now what we've kind of learned now is that the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers have basically had this agreement behind the scenes that he would show up in time for minicamp the whole time. That's why, personally, I was never on the whole, oh my God, the Steelers are just hoping Aaron Rodgers will show up train, because they knew that there was a deal that was going to be done. This has been in the bag for a while. But we're past that now. We're now past the will he, won't he, what it means. Are they waiting? No, he's in Pitt. He's coming to Pittsburgh. He's signing the dotted line. Let's talk about what's actually next now, so that we can actually talk about what they do at minicamp and what the Steelers offense could look like moving forward. OTAs have finished, which means next week minicamp is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I expect DK Metcalf, who hasn't been at Steelers OTAs as well, he'll probably show up along with TJ Watt and other guys. This will be our first full look at what the Steelers offense should look together as a unit when minicamp starts on Tuesday. Now, Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator, is going to have to adapt parts of his offense to how Rodgers wants to play. At 41, going on 42, Rodgers is going to want to be in the shotgun more because he likes to see the field. He doesn't like as much motions. He's going to want to make adjustments from the pocket and kind of let him have that free reign of being the field general that he has been for most of his career. Smith and the Steelers offense still going to want to be about the run, though, and at least have that balance to it for a good portion of the season. So the two are going to have to see eye to eye somehow. It's hard for me to see, though, Aaron Rodgers being the one who has to give up more because he is Aaron Rodgers. He's a 4-time MVP quarterback. I think that Arthur Smith, one of his biggest tasks is going to be to modify the aspects of the run game and play action that he wants to naturally have in the Steelers offense around what Aaron Rodgers does as a quarterback. And that's going to be a big test for him because he kind of had to switch things around between what he did with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson last year. It's hard for me to see Arthur Smith doing what he did with Russell Wilson, though, last season, because remember, towards the end of the season, Arthur Smith basically told Russell Wilson, hey, knock it off. You're not calling any adjustments. You're not calling out any audibles. I'm running the show here. Just do what I tell you to do. Despite Aaron Rodgers being 41, that guy's a 4-time MVP. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And when you get guys like that, even at 41 years old, they're going to be able to call their own shots. And Aaron Rodgers certainly is going to do that. So what Arthur Smith has to do is he has to concoct an offense that accomplishes the objectives the Steelers want to be. They want to be a more physical team. They want to have the run game. They want to have a balanced look, but give him the command to be able to say, hey, We're going to give you all these different options. We're going to trust you on the field to make those decisions. I don't think the Steelers are going to give Aaron Rodgers, despite the free reign we're talking about him having as far as being able to see and call plays out or call adjustments out on the field. I think they'll give him that leniency. I don't think you're going to see him get the free reign, him being Aaron Rodgers, get the free reign that the Jets gave him. Because remember when the Jets brought him in, he was the franchise quarterback. They felt they were on the brink of being a Super Bowl contender. They had all the pieces in place. They just needed Aaron Rodgers for a 2 to 3 year span, and they could be a Super Bowl contender. So he got a lot of what he wanted when he went to the New York Jets. The Steelers don't see Aaron Rodgers that way. They see him as a 1-year guy. This is a 1-year deal. As a stopgap quarterback. That's it. Both sides know what the deal is. They'll do their best to tool things up around Aaron Rodgers, but the priority is not going to be to do everything he wants, bringing in Nathaniel Hackett to be his offensive coordinator, giving up significant draft compensation for receivers that only he wants and not the whole offense would benefit from for the long term. I don't think they're going to let his opinions shake up their staff and shake up their long-term plans. But this will be a litmus test for the stability of this organization and the integral fortitude that the Steelers have shown within their organization over the years. Rodgers basically broke up the Jets in the nucleus that they had built. Robert Saleh looked like they were building something. They had a lot of young guys on offense and defense. There was something there. Now that's been imploded, and they got to start all over again. The Steelers must show that they are not as easily shaken. And listen, they have. That's why the Steelers haven't been last in the division since 1988. So I wasn't even alive then. But when you look at that, I think that's where the Steelers are going to be able to show that. And I don't think it will be an issue for the Steelers. I think that the primary objective of letting Aaron Rodgers be the quarterback for this upcoming season is that they need a good veteran quarterback that knows defenses, know how offenses work, can play at the NFL level and not crush you and make the occasional big play in the big moment so that you can develop the chemistry in your offense for your young offensive line that you're hoping develops into at least an above average offensive line this year. And then your playmakers like Jalen Warren, Caleb Johnson, your rookie, Pat Freiermuth, DK Metcalf, maybe a Roman Wilson, a Calvin Austin, all these guys, there's a synergy in this offense. And at the quarterback position, you don't want that synergy getting broken up by a guy who's not going to be able to deliver most of the time, who's not going to know how to adjust to what defenses are doing. That's where Aaron Rodgers can come in. He doesn't have to be the straw that stirs the drink. He can be a cog in the machine, an important cog, and he's going to be a cog that gets staying power because he's going to, or not staying power, but the ability to call things out and kind of use the brain that's made him a franchise quarterback and a Hall of Fame quarterback. But he's going to be a part of the machine as far as getting them to that point. I think that is the ultimate objective of this season. I don't think the Steelers are Super Bowl contenders. Anyone that says that, hey, more power to you. I think this is still a bridge year. This is the bridge year to set up the potential window. And that's what Aaron Rodgers is in Pittsburgh to do, is to kind of get them together, help be a part of the machine. It makes this a more comfortable offense so that when a rookie does arrive, that if they draft the right quarterback next year, they have that window set up. The offense is ready to go, and they're ready for 2026 and beyond with the weapons around them and a good offensive line. But now that the Steelers do have Rodgers, who will be added to those lists of weapons? Gabe Davis visited the facility Thursday and left without a deal. We'll take a look at that next and who that could be right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. But first, I remind you this show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year only at Monarch Money. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our discussion on the signing of Aaron Rodgers and the impact it'll have on the Steelers offense. Now, back on Gabe Davis. Now, of course, Gabe Davis, free agent wide receiver, recently cut by the Jacksonville Jaguars. We talked about, hey, he was coming in for a visit. He got to Pittsburgh Wednesday, supposedly did a physical. Thursday was his day to talk to coaches and front office guys and see how the fit was. He left the facility without a deal, so we'll see what happens there. But Davis seems like a fine option, if for no other reason than he's going to be a cheap wide receiver, who can readily line up on the outside and be a deep threat on the opposite side of DK Metcalf. Because remember, Gabe Davis, he's getting $11.5 million this year from the guaranteed money left over from his Jaguars contract. So he's going to be making decent money. So he can probably take a vet minimum contract, or at least $1.5 million, something that's not going to break the bank or require a whole lot from the Steelers to bring him in. But in no means does this mean that Gabe Davis is the wide receiver two, the ultimate wide receiver two that the Steelers want for their franchise to pair with DK Metcalf for an extended period of time. Behind Metcalf, there will be a battle for that wide receiver two position, I think, over the next really 3 days in minicamp and then maybe going into training camp as well. That battle will be primarily between Calvin Austin, and entering his fourth year in the NFL, Roman Wilson, who was drafted last year, didn't play, and is looking to kind of make headway. And I do think he's looked good in these OTAs. And looking good in OTAs don't mean a whole lot, but I do think that he's done a solid job. And then Robert Woods, of course, the veteran that they brought in to kind of be the stability guy in the room. And hey, if they signed Gabe Davis, he'd be a fourth option guy that could be there. But if none of those guys pan out, I fully expect the Steelers to be in the market for a better wide receiver too. And I expect the Steelers to make that move at some point. This could come most likely around training camp time. Now, we've talked about this multiple times this week already with Alan Saunders, Nick Farabaugh earlier this week. The Steelers are most likely waiting right now for other teams' situations to come to get to a point where those teams will want to move on from certain receivers on their roster, and that could come for a wide variety of reasons, right? It happens every year at some point, and this is not just wide receiver, it's several positions, where sometimes a team has a newer, younger player at a position, and they don't want to keep the older veteran who's more expensive, and so they want to move him. And sometimes that veteran just wants a new contract, and they won't get one, and so they demand a situation. But either way, it's just when situations with certain players become untenable with the team, and then both parties kind of want to figure out a new situation. Heck, that's how the Steelers landed Joe Hayden back when the Browns cut him and the Steelers picked him up, and that solved the cornerback position for a few years. And again, that stuff happens. Now, other times, a team might be in desperate need for one specific position on their roster where they just have a big hole and they haven't been able to fill it. And you might have that position in abundance on your team. Like, for example, it would not shock me if the Steelers, like we talked about the depth of their linebacker room, it would not shock me if, like, the Steelers go in a preseason game, Cole Holcomb plays like very well. And if some team's like, hey, we will give you X for that guy, and it's a swap of like depth players somewhere, and maybe that works out for them. And I'm just using Cole Holcomb as an example. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that kind of stuff can happen when teams are just looking to fill spots in their roster based off of injuries that happen in training camp or preseason, and they want to make sure that they have a more balanced roster. But that's where the Steelers might be able to make their move for a wide receiver too, because that better suits their needs right now. Because remember, they don't want to compromise their draft outlook for next year. Right now, they're projected to have 12 overall picks with the addition of the expected picks that should come from their compensatory picks. that they get for the players they let go in free agency this year. Remember, they weren't big players in free agency this year because they wanted those picks to basically accrue into getting compensatory picks. So now, as it stands, because of those picks and the pick they got, the third-round pick they got for George Pickens, they have a first-round pick, a second-round pick, 3 third-round picks, 2 fourth-round picks, 2 fifth-round picks, 2 sixth-round picks, and I think 2 seventh-round picks. So that's a lot of picks to have. Now, you might say, like, well, those later ones don't count. Those later ones won't necessarily be the ammunition they use to trade up to go get the quarterback of their dreams, but they can be part of the ammunition that helps them fill out the rest of that draft class and maybe make some moves to get some guys higher up in the 4th round or get back into the 3rd round. So things like that can happen. But again, I don't think they want to touch those picks unless it's for a real dog that they're going to be bringing into the organization and that they think it's worth it. Now, one such dog is a guy who has been in the news this week. Now, there's been plenty of noise about one wide receiver in particular. Of course, that's Scary Terry, a.k.a. Terry McLaurin, the Commanders wide receiver. Now, I've said this on this show several times. Steelers fans, do not get your hope up for Terry McLaurin. The reports have been Terry McLaurin isn't showing up at OTAs. He's unhappy with the current situation and the lack of a long-term offer that he's been getting, or what the Commanders have been offering him, or the lack of movement, whatever. He's unhappy with the Commanders front office right now, and those reports are getting out. And I personally think these are all just ploys to get them to give him a better contract. It's the stuff that you see all the time. It's the things like, when TJ Watt was doing his hold in with the Steelers and Minkah Fitzpatrick and Alex Highsmith and Deontay Johnson, name a player who's done a hold in with the Steelers. And there's problems there. And I tell people, no, it's not a problem. They're going to sign those guys. Terry McLaurin, I just find a very, very low chance that they do not find a way to sign him long-term, especially because when you look at the Commanders right now, next year they have $70.3 million in cap space. The year after that, over $192 million. They have the money to sign him. Terry McLaurin was a huge part of what made them Super Bowl contenders this year, as they made it to the NFC Championship game with a rookie quarterback. There's no way you let go Terry McLaurin when Jaden Daniels was cooking the way he was with him. They're going to find a way to sign him. So Steelers fans, I know you're probably excited and thinking something there. I don't think it's gonna happen. Don't expect him to be available. And hey, if the very unlikely chance that he actually is really, really upset and just refuses to sign with the team, Terry McLaurin would be one of the very few wide receivers where I would consider giving up serious draft compensation to get him, because I think he is that good. He's got great route running. He's got the tenacity you want. He's a playmaker. He seems like a really good teammate. And him paired with DK Metcalf would be a terrifying duo. Heck, if that happened, I'd bring back the nickname of weapons of mass destruction that I was ready to give George Pickens and DK Metcalf as a duo. But again, that's a long shot from happening. What we have to do is, if you want to see who the Steelers are going to get at wide receiver, it's going to be a wait and see approach. It's not going to be about trying to call your shot at this point. And who knows, you'll call your shot and maybe like that you'll hit that lottery one in 50 chance. But I think that what the Steelers have done here, we've heard that they've reached out to the Saints about Chris Olave. They've talked to numerous teams about receivers, playmakers, just people on offense that they could bring in and what the cost might be. And so then what's going to happen is when they get to that training camp point and teams are, those untenable situations I mentioned start to happen, now they know what the price was when that situation wasn't untenable, and that maybe there can be the moves that happen there. Now, I expect whoever they get and what their plan is for the wait and see approach to see who they can add to the offense, I expect it to be less about Aaron Rodgers and what he wants, unless several other options don't work out. Like if the Steelers have a plan, again, I propose the hypothesis that, like, let's say Jordan Addison is like, I don't want to stick in Minnesota because I'm never going to get paid because Justin Jefferson is getting paid, and someone take me, and the Steelers make a move for that. Like, the Steelers would not pass up on an opportunity like that or Terry McLaurin for Allen Lazard, right? But if it's kind of like last year where they don't get the Brandon Ayuk, they don't get whoever, the big one of the big names, I think that's when you'll see them be like, okay, Aaron, who do you want? And they won't give up big compensation. They won't basically compromise their bigger long-term plan. But I could see them making a move and say, hey, we'll give up a 7th round or a 6th round pick to go get X receiver, maybe Romeo Doubs from the Packers, a guy who has played with Aaron Rodgers, or just somebody that could come in and help the wide receiver unit and work with Aaron Rodgers there. But I think that only happens if the guys that they're really targeting end up not being available and they strike out during that wait and see approach for what happens. But remember, throughout all of this, the biggest goal is to stick to the long-term plan that this team has been building up. They wanted to rebuild the offensive line. They're trying to regroup at the defensive line. They're trying to become stronger in the trenches again with their youth movement. They're trying to add playmakers at different points. They're trying to build that new nucleus and that new core so that their window can open back up sooner rather than later. And that is the point of this season. Not trying to load up and make it all about this 1 year, not trying to go all in for this hypothetical all or nothing season. I think that there's a bigger plan in play. If you've been following this show, you know I've been talking about this. I want to explain more of what goes into that plan. We'll do that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. Be right back. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our episode here talking about the Aaron Rodgers signing and what it means. We've talked about the impact of now, what it could impact as far as their wide receiver 2 plans, as far as who they could add. Now let's talk about the long-term plan, because remember, with all of this, the Steelers are setting up a chance to open up a new window. The top priorities for this season are to set up the future of the Steelers to have a real Super Bowl window for in the near future. I said this in a live chat that I did with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I do these Thursday mornings. Usually I did it at 9 a.m. where I interact with you, the fans, answering your questions live via text in the article. So if you ever want to do those are fun. Subscribe to the Post-Gazette. Do that with me. We have a good time. It was a really cool one that we did there. But I said this in the Thursday chat that I did yesterday morning while I was at the Steelers facility. And I truly do believe this. I believe that the dawn of the Steelers' next Super Bowl window is closer to right now than the Steelers are to the dusk of their previous window. Now, of course, that previous window was a bit ago. Like, I'd say that previous window kind of closed around like 2020 if they were really gonna do it. 2021. Old man Ben Roethlisberger. 2022 was rookie Kenny Pickett. Like that's around the time, like 2020, when they went 11-0 and they had a chance, and they was like, okay, maybe there's something there. This defense is still a top 5 unit. Maybe Ben Roethlisberger, but when Ben Roethlisberger faded, it was like, well, there goes those chances. So I think that they are much closer now to what could come next. But again, it depends on them getting the quarterback position right. And again, I think that it's been where they are right now is they need to make sure that window is even possible. If they get that quarterback right, they have to continue putting the right building blocks in place to open up that window, and that requires them stacking. So I do think Aaron Rodgers helps with that plan as far as how the Steelers want to do it. Now, I think Aaron Rodgers, he's going to come in. If the Steelers were an 8 or 9 win team without Aaron Rodgers, I think he makes them a 10 or 11 win team. I don't think that he by himself lifts this team up and makes them Super Bowl contenders, but I do think that he can get them over the hump to being getting them to have a good year. And I do think a good year with a healthy, and I emphasize the word healthy, Aaron Rodgers is a double-digit win season that gets them a more favorable wild card spot. I just don't see them winning the division with the Ravens. The Ravens are just really stacked. They're in their prime. They're in their window right now. Granted, they need to hit on their window or that's going to close at some point. But this year, getting a more favorable wild card matchup that they can win and not having to go on the road to play a 2-seed team in their house where they'll just get outplayed because that 2-seed team is a real Super Bowl contender. And I mean, let's remember, if the Steelers had beaten the Bengals, I believe that would have put them in Houston where they could have played the Texans, and that would have been a game that they could have won because the Texans weren't playing that great. And the Steelers, if they had been able to get their stuff together, that could have been their playoff win to say, hey, we're building something. We're moving something forward. And that's where I think that there could be something to build with this year. But this year isn't just about that. it's about building with the young pieces that you have to find that nucleus for the future so that you have that stronger foundation and you're ready to move forward in 2026. Omar Khan and Andy Weidel have made their picks for the offensive line for the future. Those are basically in place. They've added talent to the roster on both sides of the ball, and they're trying to build that new nucleus with the guys that are going to help them get there. But this year needs to be the year where those first investments start to show more fruit. Guys like Broderick Jones, the first pick of the Omar Khan era at offensive tackle, Joey Porter Jr., the second pick of the era, and Keanu Benton, the third pick of the era, all guys that have shown good signs but need to show their worth this year. All are going to be big points to watch this year to see if the Steelers' their younger foundation starts to take hold. And it really needs to be about this young offensive line. If this young offensive line takes a collective step forward, that does a whole lot for the future of this team, because then the run game comes alive, the pass protection comes alive, and that makes things a lot easier on if you do hit gold, strike gold with that rookie quarterback, then you have a lot more going for you. Because if all those things happen, it immensely helps the big picture, not just for this season for the Steelers, but for what they want in a foundation for a rookie quarterback to join them and be competitive right away. Aaron Rodgers can be the veteran quarterback that helps keep the Steelers ship steady in games and makes good decisions with the ball, that allows the team to fight its way through some battles, find victories that they can build confidence with, and learn from defeats in ways that aren't just marred by sub quarterback play or subpar quarterback play like we have seen in recent years. If the Steelers can accomplish that, if this can be the year where they develop an above average offensive line, they learn some things, they figure out who they are and what their identity can be moving forward, that'll be the foundation for if they do find their franchise quarterback in 2026, they can have that sturdy O-line, a powerful and explosive run game with some playmakers available to the offense, and a defense that can still get after opponents, be dangerous, and be among one of the better units in the NFL. Those are all the things that Ben Roethlisberger inherited when the Steelers drafted him in 2004, and he came into that season as a rookie and then won a Super Bowl in his second year. But to get there, it took building positive traits. Even though they went 6-10 the year before, that was a team that if you talk to leaders on it, like Joey Porter Sr., actually, if you talk to him back then about Joey Porter, like he dropped a pick 6 against the Patriots in an AFC Championship game a few years before that, and they lost in a tight game to the Titans in the playoff game. Those were building blocks and lessons and moments that kind of built the gusto of that team that they had and the spirit of the team that basically Ben Roethlisberger was able to just come on and learn from, because you had Casey Hampton, you had James Ferrier, you had Joey Porter, you had Hines Ward, Jerome Bettis, Alan Faneca. You had these grizzled veterans that could kind of be like, hey, young guy, I know you're the quarterback, I know you're the playmaker, get in line, learn from us. And that's where I think the Steelers are trying to get to saying, hey, and again, those guys, when Hines Ward, all those guys, you may know them now as Super Bowl champions. At the time, they were not. And there were people wondering if that crew would ever do anything, if Bill Cowher he was just not a big game coach because he only had been to one Super Bowl and kept losing at home in the AFC Championship game. But again, to get to that point where they were, it took building those positive traits and putting the building blocks together of a good offensive line, playmakers in the offense, the right pieces on defense. That's why this year is going to be important, and that's why I think Aaron Rodgers could be important, is if he can help be that piece that keeps everything steady on offense. You could see that this group develop it and be ready for when he retires after this season. Most likely, they can put in a rookie quarterback, and it's like, hey, young buck, we figured this out already. Just play to what we're trying to do, and everything's going to be all right. So again, building those positive traits is going to be a big part of it. This is why you always see me say the tear down the tanking idea is terrible. I tear that down all the time for picks, because when you tear down, when you tank, there's no guarantee that you're ever going to bounce back from that. Whereas if you emphasize the importance of winning, even if you don't get there, you're building towards something and people believe in something, and that's how you build cores and moving forward. And yes, some people can strike it rich and go with a tank project and get lucky and move forward. But most teams that tank do not come out of that for quite some time. And then it becomes a whole other process, and you search for culture and all this other stuff. That's not something Steelers have to do, nor do you want to see them do, because I do think they have good pieces on this roster right now for the long term. If Aaron Rodgers can be that part of the offense that steadies things, then it's a good thing that they've got him for just a year. But again, this is where the true test, the rubber's going to meet the road for the Steelers to show how stable of an organization they are, how stable of a coach is Mike Tomlin to be able to handle that situation. Because let's face it, Aaron Rodgers basically blew up the Jets. They have to show, hey, this is why the Steelers are the Steelers. The Steelers way is real. If they make that happen, Aaron Rodgers comes in, doesn't blow things up, plays to the system, and they develop these things, that could lead to that dawn of the new Super Bowl window being much closer than people realize if they just get the quarterback right next year in the draft and they bring him into a system that has a good offensive line, good run game, playmakers on offense, and still a good defense that can compete. So that is the long-term plan, and Aaron Rodgers being with the Steelers needs to not impact that, whether that means getting a receiver for him, letting him call big shots. He needs to understand he is part of a project this year that is to set up the future years. And that's where I think the Pittsburgh Steelers really are right now. Minicamp is next week. That starts Tuesday, and we will have a lot to cover from there because I'll be there covering it. We'll be talking about it here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Not only do we expect Aaron Rodgers to be there, but DK Metcalf should be there. Also, we haven't had a chance to talk to TJ Watt with his contract situation. We expect him to be there. I expect him to probably talk. It's going to be a big week next week. So tune in for all of that here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Thanks so much for tuning in all week. We appreciate you guys tuning into this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content, like the emergency episode that we released when there were a report that Aaron Rodgers was going to sign first broke the news there. And as always, you can find me, Chris Carter, on all the social media, different platforms, at Carter Critiques on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. I'm probably on it. So thanks again for everyone for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast. We hope you have a great weekend. We're back here Monday, getting you ready for Steelers mandatory minicamp and what comes with Aaron Rodgers being part of that. We'll see you then on the Locked On Steelers podcast.